Pablo, welcome to the Modern Masculinity podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
We are at our mutual friend Jason's event, talking about a lot of the weight that the world is carrying and a lot of the shifts in the world. But I'm curious for you, what challenges, what uh, battles, what loads are you carrying and sort of working through as a man today?
Um, Thanks for the question. I think, yeah, that's a really interesting question. Nobody's asked me that in a while. I think a lot of what I'm working through is related to sort of my career. Like, not even necessarily my career, but like, what am I doing with my time? What am I devoting my energy to? Understanding how much of my time should be for my. I think a lot of guys spend a lot of time like, building themselves um, and thinking about how can I make myself better? How can I improve these things for myself? But I'm starting to notice that in myself, and I'm starting to notice like, whoa, like, um, should I be spending more time thinking about others a little bit more? I mean, I'm single, and I would really looking forward to a future where I have children, and obviously once I have kids, like, it's going to be a very different experience. Like, I'll just have to be service oriented because that's the default for a dad. But for now, like, I wonder how much of my time should I be spending, in service of others. And so that's something that I think about a lot. And
I think it's worthwhile, and I think it's great. Being on the other side of that, I'd be like, man, enjoy your enjoy the time that you have
yeah.
to focus on you,
Uh-huh.
because that was something that after having two kids, back to back, sort of going through that, there was a re-emerging of myself, and I lost myself in that process. And transparently, I don't know that I knew who I was even before. I was who my mom wanted me to be. I was who my teachers wanted me to be. I was who my, ex at the time wanted me to be. I was all, trying to be this people pleaser. And it was only after everything fell apart that I actually spend the time to figure out, like, what the fuck do I want to do? What do I enjoy? And so I might say, I don't know what that answer is. Only you can sort of determine it. But I wouldn't downplay the importance of you also servicing yourself.
For sure. Yeah, yeah. I, Thanks for that perspective. Yeah. I think I mean I do, and I do spend a lot of time thinking about improving myself, and I enjoy the time that I it feels like I do spend a lot of time sort of improving, thinking about my physical, my health, my mental, my career path, again, my energy, like what am I doing with my time and whatnot. But yeah.
Well, I think another challenge that, you're 32, I'm 33, and I'm sort of grateful that I was taken out of that sort of single life, single perspective, just because I know how full of distractions that at least that lifestyle was for me, whether it was partying or, like all these things that I could be devoting my time to, all things, these things or people that I could be giving my energy to instead of investing in myself.
Yeah.
And so, as I'm sort of coming back into the scene, single or date, like it's interesting that I'm finding that I can go without those distractions, right? That I don't have to sort of look for, like, it just doesn't have to be a distraction. Don't get me wrong. I've had to delete the dating apps multiple times and figuring out, like, what am I searching for? And why am I scrolling through these things, and what, trying to uncover all those layers. But I wouldn't shortchange, sort of the work that you're doing, because I think it's definitely valuable in service to the people that, you will have under your domain in the future.
Yeah, I think, and you bring up an interesting point about like being a dude, you spend a lot of time in your I mean, I'm 32. I was in a really long relationship, and then that ended, and then about 6 years ago, and then I've just been back like on the dating market, and I did feel a lot of what you talked about, like the expectations of other people on you, and feeling like being a person that is like fulfilling the expectations of certain family members, or even of like the collective societal voice. Like, this is what you should be, and this is what a guy should be, and uh, this is how all of your friends behave, and this is how kind of like the right template. What's the right acceptable template? And I was having a conversation with a friend recently where he was telling me like about uh, dating and how he is uncomfortable just like hooking up with women just on a dime or like after having just met them. And it was such an interesting conversation because I think most guys hold this like across the board, you know, if you're with a group of friends, like you talk about that like it's a casual sort of part of life. And I think it's actually what I'm seeing, especially here in California, like it is kind of a casual part of the culture. Like hookup culture is like a kind of a normal thing and becoming kind of a normal sort of thing that happens. You go, maybe you even go on a dating app, and like guys and girls like start to look at dating app as like this kind of thing that facilitates those kinds of interactions. And I just think there's actually like a subset of the male population that is just actually uncomfortable with that. Like, um, I've I don't really actually feel fully comfortable jumping into like really casual or really quick flings. I've found that out over the years. Like that's not for me because I don't feel comfortable during and after. Like I don't feel like it was wholesome. I don't feel like it added much. And I also feel like it becomes a distraction, a lasting distraction. Because then you have weeks or days after where you're like, you know, you could be working on your mission or yourself or building something, but instead you're like distracted with this person that you met once, and it isn't even like a real match, like a soulful match, but you're spending time hanging out with them. You might even know you shouldn't be, and because you created that sort of chemical bond, now you're sort of locked into something that could go on for a little bit too long. And and I did that, and I've done that, and I ended up like, you know, dating this girl for like a way too long, even though I knew I shouldn't have been. And I ended up having to like, you know, say like, oh shit, I'm realizing like I'm in this for the wrong reason, and breaking that to her, and that wasn't cool for her, nor was it for me, because you sort of become enmeshed physically, and that's very different from a soulful, real spiritual connection that you can have with a woman. So
Well, I think there's even like I'm scared of the energetic ties that come from like casual sex. Yeah, one of our previous guests, Tiago. Oh, I forgot how to say his last name. Go listen to the Segu's. Oh, he's amazing. He's the most handsome man on ever been on the show. Well, you're close second. But he talks about how like even just one intimate encounter like binds your soul, right? You know, they talk about quantum entangling and all this sort of physics, and but that there is an energetic binding that happens, and I'm just like I'm terrified of that, of that happening with the wrong person, because I've seen, for me, the negative repercussions of that enmeshment.
yeah,
Right. And not being able to break those ties.
totally.
And it's like, even with my ex-wife, it's like, it's a really interesting phenomenon, intellectually knowing I don't want to be back with her, but then physiologically feeling this like want. It's just such a strange thing to be
Yeah,
to know that that is not good for you. And you don't want it, and I think that that's part of that is that there's that energetic, you know, tie. One of the things that's worked for me has been something called like cord cutting, and it's pretty woo woo. Maybe it's not. I don't know, but it's like I told Chris who we recorded with earlier, like, I'll fucking try anything. You know, are you familiar with cord cutting?
no,
So, you know, you can get into however sort of woo woo you want, but it's essentially, you know, visualizing these energetic ties breaking through, you know, all of, you know, with these individual people. And there are some guided meditations. And what was interesting is I remember there was one time where I was in a breathwork session, and it was just a cord cutting breathwork. And, you know, I was severing ties with my ex-wife, and I felt and saw the cord sort of coming out of my stomach like an umbilical cord. And, you know, after the practice, I just started vomiting uncontrollably, purging, just like, wow, just purging. And and what was interesting is as I sort of went throughout it, you know, a couple sessions later, I had to like cut the tie off of my like my heart. Like I felt it attached not to my stomach anymore, but my heart. And like then I had this like weird chest. Like it wasn't just one cord. It wasn't just one tie. It was like, you know, granted, we created two children together. We were married for like this energetic ties, but then just to just pretend like, oh, things are done. Like I don't think guys are realizing that there are some, I don't know, there are some other things going on that keep someone from fully turning that page. And unless we're willing to like do the work to get through that, that, that's the trauma that ends up creeping up on us years later when something else happens.
Sex is such a powerful driver of behavior, of yeah. I mean, exactly what you're saying. Like you could sleep with somebody and then and be thinking about them for 3 weeks, and some people become really good at severing it, quickly and easily. And I don't know if that's a good thing.
I question whether or not that's the truth though, right? Because there's like when I dealt with my sort of breakup, it was interesting how quickly she seemed to like bounce back and have a new guy and like be engaged.
Your
Yeah.
ex-wife.
Yeah, and it was just like I wonder if she went through all of the stages of grief. Maybe she just did it earlier. They say that women sort of go through those sort of stages earlier. But I'm like, man,
Yeah.
for me to really process what this was for me, and perhaps it was different for her. It was like this took some work, and I knew that I wanted to jump back in, and I wanted to hop on Tinder or hop on all these apps.
Yeah.
But I knew something inside me told me that I would just be like throwing dirt on a wound. Like that wound is still going to be there.
Yeah.
Just by pretending it's not there, it's just going to get more infected.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember even it was interesting because when I started dating again, I did the dating apps thing. I was like, oh, let me try the dating apps thing. And I don't have great things to say about the dating app thing. I mean, because within 5 minutes if they're like a person that you vibe with or not. And you would never, you don't really get a person's vibe. You don't really get a person's energy. You don't really get any of the stuff that you need to actually read a person that you would get if you're sitting in a room with them. You immediately know, like, oh yeah, that's maybe my type, and I mean, that's one way to approach meeting somebody. Another way to approach meeting somebody, which I also think is kind of underrated and like people don't really think about, is what if you know somebody for a really long time and you love their person and you start to love who they are, like what they look like, and that's a different kind of approach. And that's, I think, because it's like trust first, which is something I'm starting to see. Like I'm starting to evaluate the women around me differently, not so much in terms of like, oh, what do you look like? And then starting to evaluate the other stuff, but like evaluate the other stuff first, and being like, and recognizing like all of the depth and substance of a girl's character, which has been a very like illuminating chapter for me, I think, because I find myself attracted to people that I wouldn't have. I find myself very attracted to people for much different reasons than I did 2 years ago. So that's been an interesting process too.
Yeah, I had a realization recently that I was like, oh shit, I have a type, and I was like, it scared me because I was like, I realized that I needed to put that type down, and I needed to go open myself to other possibilities. But I think it was part of it is a comfort thing, part of it is maybe it's even a confidence thing. I don't know what it is, right? But I had to be willing to open the door to something different or something else, because the spicy Latina, although fun and great, it has it's a roller coaster. It is a roller coaster.
Spicy Latina.
You at the event today, you led us through a breathwork session, and it was really interesting because I can only imagine that like if someone would have peeked over the fence and looked, into what was happening, they would have seen like 15 dudes laying on the floor, like, making loud noises. And I'm sure most people would have been thoroughly confused or concerned, if nothing else. Yeah. But I was like, there was a moment where I was like, oh, this is so incredible that we are getting the chance to do this. That there are guys who are willing to play full out. And I think there was only maybe one person who was their first time doing it. So it wasn't like this new sort of thing. Well, I think it's becoming new. But how do you feel about that? And I'm curious why you thought breath was something that you would sort of learn to facilitate and get trained in and start to help people through.
Oh, that's an interesting story, actually. I think a lot of people maybe go through a period in their life where things start to collapse, and then they're trying to wrestle with it and stay afloat. And there was a period where I was really trying to stay afloat. And I went to a breathwork retreat. It was a 2-day breathwork retreat. Actually, it was hosted by my mom and a group of other breathwork practitioners that they were all sort of training together. This was like 8 years ago. And it was a whole weekend of stuff. And then I felt healed. I felt changed. I felt different. I was like, oh, cool. I'm fixed. I can manage stuff. I can deal with stuff. And I get to the airport, and my depression and my anxiety, I'm boarding the plane. It's a Sunday night. The Sunday scaries kick in, and I felt like, oh no, like I'm right back where I was on Thursday evening when I got here. Nothing changed. Like nothing works. This is so bad because was like, dude, I don't see a way out. And I sat in the terminal and I just did what I learned that weekend, which is just breathe deeply, exhale slowly. And I did that for 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes. And I realized like I'm actually influencing my physiology right now. I'm feeling a bit more optimistic. And by doing that through the breath, by calming my nervous system, I unlocked a more optimistic perspective because they're interlinked. Your perspectives and your physiology are connected. If you're feeling fatigued, tired, stressed, your thoughts are going to reflect that. And they could be more fear based. And if you are energized, optimistic, laughing, and joyful, well, guess what? Your thoughts are going to reflect that too. And your decisions are going to reflect that. And your actions are going to reflect that. And so I noticed, oh, wow, like breathwork's a tool on the tool belt. It's not the solution, it's not the fix, but it is a tool to help somebody to manage circumstances. And that's what I started realizing, that all these other modalities that people try, meditation, breath work, the different kinds of meditation, Wim Hof, transcendental, somatic, which is the one that I got certified in. All of these things are tools. Yoga, working out, martial arts, like everybody has their modality. There's no prescription. There's no, this will fix you. There's go out and try stuff that land you in your body, put you in your present body, and improve your perspective in order to really purify the lens that you're seeing life through. Let's look through life through a clearer and a more optimistic lens. And it's making a conscious effort at every turn, monitoring your physiology and being really attuned to yourself, that sort of unlocks the ability to, again, manage. And when you're a good manager of your body and the signals that it's giving you, you can navigate anything. You can navigate really hard, difficult things that take a toll on your physiology, on your mental health, on your outlook. When things feel bleak and hopeless, like you have leverage. And that is why I do it now. And I'm able to sum it all up like that now. I only got certified 8 months ago, and like I mentioned, I did the breathwork thing 8 years ago. So 7 years passed, and it was still a journey of up and down. And I would forget that it was a tool and a modality that was sitting in my tool belt, and I would find it again. And about a year ago, I got really, really into music production, and and I was like, oh, yeah, I'll start making music for breath workers. And my mom was like, why don't you go get certified at this place to be a breathwork practitioner? I was like, I don't care about that. And she was like, well, if you're going to make music for them, well, at least go get, know what they're doing. And I was like, okay, yeah, good point. I absolutely loved the weekend and all the people that I met that weekend. And I just had like 2 or 3 moments, particularly during a breathwork in one of these sessions, where I had really clear realizations, physical sensations, and I hesitate to say just very meaningful experiences during my breathwork, where it was like, hey, this is definitely something that you can bring to people in a way that is helpful and can, yeah. So it's one way that I'm of service. It's very fulfilling, and I always feel like I'm in the right place when I'm doing facilitating for people. So yeah, it's a little about that, I guess.
Well, I think it's great, and I love that more people are coming online to the possibilities of what happens with breath work. Meditation sort of got popular, let's say 10 years ago or whenever that was. And I got really deep into mindfulness, which I think is great in terms of becoming aware. But there were so many times throughout this journey, and I realized I go back to this divorce a lot, but you guys can pick whatever sort of event, in their life. And I realized that I intellectually knew that I needed to get past this emotion, or I needed to process this, or that there was some grief, something that I needed to feel that I wasn't able to feel. I wasn't my ego sort of was protecting me from going into this deeper layer of emotions, because it's like that's too painful, that hurts too much, so we're just going to block that off, we're just going to wall that off, we'll throw that into the cellar. And it was like breathwork became this tool that allowed me to go and dig shit up and
Yeah.
and deal with, and able to move forward and process some of these things that were, great shit was coming up from my childhood when I was 7 and 9. Like all these things that you think are in the past, they're just stored somewhere in your body.
Yeah.
And it requires something like this. It doesn't have to be breathwork, but it is, like you said, a tool that allows you to go in and sort of dig these things up and deal with them.
Yeah. That's exactly what, yeah, that's, I mean, a lot of somatic breath work and the philosophy behind it, or like the aim is exactly that. It's like, it's just kind of like to shake up what's happening inside of you, right? It bring you into a really, stimulate the nervous system, kind of almost in a way agitating your nervous system, and then allowing whatever it is to come up and express it. When I'm sure you've experienced that, and it's, or like you said, you've experienced that, and it's really powerful because you get to 30% passive. You get to really like shed this weight that you didn't know you were carrying, and then you walk around a lighter person and you're like, oh, sick. You also feel more capable of dealing with the world when you've been through the process of carrying a bunch of weight and then shedding it, knowing that like, oh, in my opinion, like I think it's a guy's duty to like lean into fear, lean into stress, take on a bunch of challenge, and you're going to get hurt and you're going to sustain damage. Can you shed it as quickly as you carry it so that you're light and agile and continue to move on your feet like you should as a guy? And so I think for that reason, it's also a very cool tool.
Pablo, people want to get more involved with you, follow with you. I know you're going to be putting out some music soon. Where's the best place for people to get connected with you?
You can connect with me on Instagram at insta_pobs, PABS. That's mainly where I'm at right now. I will be releasing music on Spotify in the coming year. That'll all be linked on my socials. So
we'll link that up.
Yeah.
And in your opinion, Pablo, what is the definition of modern masculinity?
Well, I'm definitely not going to be able to cover everything because that's a big question. But I think if I had to sum it up for you now, I would say modern masculinity.
Yeah, what's the definition of modern masculinity?
Through whose lens? Mine?
Your lens.
Okay. I think being in your masculine means being grounded in yourself, not being influenced by those around you in the moments where it's key to have conviction or restraint. I think that establishing your set of principles and values and acting on them, no matter what emotional state you're in, and taking on the duties of a leader. So supporting other people, supporting family, supporting your wife, supporting your kids, supporting your parents, supporting those who need physical, psychological support. Basically being an agent of order and being an agent of empathy and checking your pride and checking your actions on a regular basis, I think would be how I would sum it up. So thank you for that question.